Hi there, welcome to MTurk Guide. Today I want to talk a little bit about a specific requester, and I decided to start doing what I'm calling a requester spotlight. And a spotlight, as by definition, is just putting a light on a particular requester, whether they're good, bad, neutral. More information is needed. I'm not favoring any specific requester in this process. I'm just trying to, really the purpose of this is to help you all understand how I go through assessing these requesters when I see them popping up on HitScraper or just as I'm searching through MTurk in general. And, I go through this thought process sometimes very quickly, and I know I speak about it in some of the webcasts, and I really want to make sure that I break it down a little bit and articulate it for you so you can get a sense for how I process the information that's out there and how I assess it and make decisions whether those are hits I want to do or not. And really, at the end of the day, you'll develop your own way of doing this. And it's going to be influenced, obviously, by how you problem solve in your daily life and how you take in information, process it, and make your own decisions. But I really want to give everybody some examples to work off of, and just make sure I put out there some of the nuances that do exist in terms of making sure you're using the various tools and how at what periods you're reviewing requesters. It's a lot of data, and I totally understand that. But some cautious and careful problem solving and decision making will help you keep a good, pristine record. So I picked a particular this requester called PCVA. I don't know if it's an acronym for something, but it's just what they call themselves. And I picked them because they're not obviously super good. They're not obviously super bad. They're kind of somewhere in the middle. They're in transition, but I want to explain how I found out about it, how I figured it out. So to start out with, let me give a little perspective as to how I found them as a requester. So at one juncture, they had a qualification hit. And a qualification hit is where you may do a handful of hits, 5 to 10 hits for no pay. But if you do the work well in those 5 to 10 hits, it will give you access to hits that are closed off to others who didn't do the qual hit. And obviously those are paid. And usually they're paid at a slightly higher rate than comparable hits. It's nice for a bunch of reasons. One, that the pay is a little bit higher. Number two, it's a closed qualification, and therefore not everybody on MTurk is competing with the same hits with you. So it's nice to have those qualifications. So, as an aside, if you see something that says qualification and the pay is 0, don't bypass it. Dig in a little, see what it's all about. In this particular case, that's what I saw. I saw a PCVA and I saw the qual hit. Well, at the time, because it was a qual hit, I said, I'll just do it. I have enough of a buffer that if for some reason I really messed up the qual hit and they felt the need to reject it, which isn't standard operating procedure. Usually they just approve it for, no money and then not give you the qual. But sometimes requesters who are new don't understand that the nuances of that. But I had enough. I had like 45,000 approved or something. So if I did have, 5 rejections, it would have hurt, but it wouldn't have, totally tanked my account. So I did the qualification hit. And so after I got the qualification for specific hits, these were other hits, not the ones that are out there right now. The ones that are out there right now aren't qualled, but with the specific hits that I had qualled for started popping up on my hit scraper and when I was looking for hits. And so when they started popping up, I did the natural thing and looked at the data. They're not familiar to me as requesters, so I looked at the data, and here's the data points that I saw. At the top here, the top image you see from within MTurk, I can see by clicking or hovering over the downward arrows, I could see that communicativity was not good. Generosity was edging towards middle of the road, but not on the right side of middle of the road. Fairness, same thing. And fairness and promptness were probably edging their way over to the right side of the middle of the road, the correct side of the middle of the road, if you will. And I see that they have 15 reviews, which means they've got something going on, right? People are talking. It's not just one review of one person who's disgruntled for one reason. To me, 15 reviews tells me there's significant amount of data with which to use some of those decision-making skills as to whether I wanted to engage in these hits or not. So aside from that, seeing them within MTurk, I would also see them on HitScraper. And you can see that the data, and I apologize for the quality of this picture. I wanted to gray out or blur out everything else so that we knew exactly what we were talking about. You can see they're kind of like a orangey yellowy thing that's, and it's somewhere right in that middle ground. It's not a solid red, like stay away, but it's not a green, like proceed. So in looking at this, I said, okay, by conventional standards and for people who are just starting, you wouldn't want to dive into this, right? Because orange, yellow, it's like proceed with caution is the message you're getting. And if you've only done 100 or 500 or 1,000, you don't want to risk your account for a requester who is on the border of being a good or a bad requester. It's just not worth it. But for me, I said, okay, I just want to check them out a little bit more and see what's going on here, so that for future reference, when, I'm searching around, I can decide whether I do or don't want to do their hits. I could also block them on HitScraper if I didn't want to do their hits. So as I said, by conventional standards, my advice, to most people, or you've heard me say, is you would bypass this requester. And so, but I had noticed during that time that this requester was putting up batches and the batches were getting done. So that's another trigger to me to say, and I knew they were different batches because the title was slightly different. I could see that they were refining their hits. And so that's a good sign too, right? That they're trying to improve their hits. They're taking feedback, obviously. So I said, okay, something's going on here. People are doing their hits. They have a middle of the road color coding and numbering, and they have 15 reviews. So there's a story here. I got to find out what it is. So on a particular day when it was a little bit quieter, I decided to go in. And if you use Post-it notes, or you have an app or something where you have to-do or reminders, go ahead and have an MTurk sheet or a Post-it and put those requester names down. That's the type of kind of on the side research that can really, give you a leg up on folks that are just letting it kind of come to them and not doing a little bit extra here and there. And it will pay off in the long run as well. So anyways, during my downtime, I did a little searching. And so immediately, obviously, I go into TurkOpticon and I read through all 15 reviews, or at the time, it was probably less than that. I think this was over the summer. So they probably had they maybe had 10 or 9, but still a good amount for me to say, okay, I can get a sense for what's going on here. And the first one that popped out to me was the one with, you can see here, has no ratings. Okay. So that's interesting. So I read it and I see, okay, this is the requester, and this is okay. This is okay for them to do in TurkOpticon, as long as they're not trying to game the system by giving themselves any sort of rating or anything. They can certainly interact and talk with us as workers via the TurkOpticon platform. So this is okay. So you can see they're basically saying they're sincerely sorry for the troubles. They made a huge mistake and they were using time as a quality control cue. This is something I talked about in my webcast yesterday about rejections, that new requesters sometimes think that the amount of time somebody spends on a hit equals high or low quality, and that's just simply not the way it is. Some people read fast. Some people, some people are just slower on the computer. Some people have slower internet connections. There's so many factors that could go into a time on a hit being a factor that it's just not a good metric. And these requesters found that out the hard way. So we can see they attempted to revert the rejections that were handed out. But since some of them were submitted more than 30 days ago, they couldn't revert those. And they contacted Amazon, MTurk, and they could not help. So they were stuck. So what they did to make people whole from a monetary perspective was they granted bonuses. To some people, that will be okay. For the people whose account could handle those rejections, they're going to say, great, I got my money. That's really all I cared about. Yeah, the rejections aren't great, but whatever, I got my money, I'm good. There's the people who didn't have enough of a buffer and those rejections did hurt them. And sure, the money, takes the sting out a little bit, but I'm sure they're probably still thinking about those rejections every time they look at their dashboard. So, the story here is they're trying to make it right. And they're apologizing, and they want to establish and maintain a good relationship with the workers. And they're understanding a little bit better how this whole thing works, right? How MTurk works, how the hits work, how TurkOpticon work, how the worker feedback works. So, so I read that and I said, okay, so a lot of times requesters just flat out don't answer. And so for a requester to seek out TurkOpticon, take the time to set up an account and sort of bare their soul, their turking soul, if you will, was refreshing to me. So I said, okay, that's a thumbs up. So I went back down, and I'm not going to bore you with every single review that was on that page, because you yourself can go into TurkOpticon and read all this. And, you may come to a different conclusion. And if you do, shoot me a message on YouTube or on the Facebook page, or comment openly if you feel comfortable, and just tell me what you feel, is what you learned from reading it. I'm totally open to that, because this is my interpretation. So what I did was I went to one of the rejections, and it said, the person said, I read the directions carefully. Nowhere in the directions did it state you had to watch the whole video. I was rejected for 60 hits. This is very early in my MTurk progression, so it hurt me. The requester gave no real reason other than to say lower quality. Message requester, no response. So here's my feedback on that piece is, if you're early in your turking career, 60 hits on a requester that doesn't have a good rating at that juncture, even if it's one or two reviews, is a bad move. It's simply put, it's a bad move. And this person got burned. It can go one of two ways in this person. It did not go well for them. So while I sympathize with them, I'm here to save you all from making those type of mistakes. So then after I read that and I kind of, formed my opinion about it, I went up to a more recent review. And in this case, because I was clipping this today, it was more recent hits, and it seems that it's a quick hit, easy instructions, and they paid very quickly. So that tells me that the requester is trying to make amends and trying to make the process right moving forward. So that's what I got. So my assessment was, in summary, they had a bad TO rating for May-ish. That means the first review on to July, when they started to answer the emails that were coming in, and they posted on TurkOpticon. The workers who got burned by this should have been reviewing TO and avoiding these hits in the June-July timeframe. Avoiding them altogether or doing them in a metered way. And what I mean by that is, do 5, wait, see what happens. Do you get rejected or accepted? If it gets accepted, do maybe 10. Okay, and if you get your 10, and just do it that way. Don't do 60 in a bunch and then wait to see what happens. Again, the requester took the time to post on TurkOpticon and plead his case. The damage was done to those that had hits rejected over 30 days old, but they did make people whole from a monetary perspective. And at the end of the day, that is what we're here for. But obviously, there are other factors at play here. I think my opinion, and this is where a lot of opinion comes in, the requester is going to be wary of rejecting, as it appears he's looking to improve and maintain the TO rating and worker relations. I just think he's going to be not too comfortable handing out rejections in the future unless it's real blatant. And anybody who's taking the time to listen to these webcasts isn't going to go scamming and just clicking around and things like that. So that's my opinion. And additionally, the hits for this particular requester may not be the best bet for the time money equation, but it could be something that's great for a slower period when things aren't, you aren't being inundated with work. So it's something, I'm not saying go jump on it, but take a peek at it. See if it's something you enjoy, something you're good at, or something you think could fill up downtime. And the other piece that I think, again, is an opinion, but I think the requester will be most likely to be receptive to feedback on hits in the future. And I think that's evident by the fact that they're continuously trying to improve them. And I see that as the new batches continue to be posted. So my final statement as of today is that they're a yellow. And I think they're yellow trending towards green. And what I mean by that is that they've brought themselves from the red into the yellow. I'm on the fence about them. I'd say in the next month, if they continue to have really good data, they should start to move that needle into the green territory. And because data is the way data is, it's going to take a lot of reviews from people that are satisfied to move the needle towards green. And that's just the way data is. So I say yellow because, any requester could do anything. They could falter and they could go right back where they started. So what yellow to me means, if you're doing the hits, watch if others are doing them, other batches going down, and review TurkOpticon periodically just to make sure that there's nothing big that's gone on or blown up that you're not aware of that would indicate you should stop doing the hits. So you understand my legend for this, because I'm going to use this for all the other spotlights that I do. Green would be obviously a proceed, rarely review, but don't assume that they'll always be green. And again, that comes back to data again. If somebody has been green for a year, it's going to take a whole bunch of reds to bring them into that yellow territory. So you got to be checking here and there. And as time goes on, I'll also, as I hear things going on, I'll post them on the Facebook page so that people are aware. But, if you're kind of insular in this and not doing it with a lot of buzz from other people, you may want to just check TurkOpticon every once in a while. And then red is don't complete the hits, check on the requester, rarely for improvement. You don't want to invest a lot of time in a red requester, and again, decision making. You're going to start to see if you think a requester is trying to do the right thing, and that'll, and you can make notes as to whether you want to follow up or not. But this is just the legend I want to use to help people kind of give the opinion of where I stand on a particular requester. And my goal would be over time to sort of re-review requesters that I've done in the past to say, okay, here's an example of one that was good and went bad, or bad went good, or stayed the same, things like that. So that's kind of two-tiered point today. Was one, to put the requester spotlight process out there for you. If you have feedback on that, on the legend or anything, let me know. And then second was to talk a little bit about PCVA. Go check out the hits. And tell me what you think, and maybe do one or two if you feel comfortable doing so. And certainly, as always, comment, like, subscribe, talk to me, let me know how I can help. So that's all for this requester spotlight. I certainly appreciate you listening in, and I will be posting another video shortly. Thanks, everybody.